Good morning, guys. I'm about to show you what something called vertically opposite angles are. So let's consider this diagram. So I'm going to tell you that angle IKH is 130 degrees. So that's the angle that goes from I to K to H. So it's 130 degrees. I want you to think very carefully about last lesson, and then I want you to ask yourself, well, what does angle IKG, so in other words this missing angle here, have to be? So remember that angles on a straight line add up to make 180 degrees. So a half turn, so where I'm wiggling my cursor, that half turn represents 180 degrees. So this angle IKG therefore must be 50 degrees. I wonder, do we have enough information to figure out all of the missing angles in this diagram yet? Alright, well let's consider angle GKJ, so in other words this angle here where I'm wiggling my cursor. So again, think back to last lesson, what would this angle have to be? So we can make a full turn, so do we see where I'm wiggling my cursor? That's a full turn, so that's a semicircle. If we already have 50, well, what would this angle have to be? GKJ. Well, that would have to be 130 degrees because it makes 180. And then finally, well, what would angle JKH have to be? So this missing angle here. Well, where I'm wiggling my cursor, I can make a half turn because it's on that straight line. So what has to go in that gap? Well, 50 degrees has to go in that gap. Look at this image. What do you notice that's interesting about these four angles? Well, we've got a pair of 130s and we've got a pair of 50 degrees. So we call these angles vertically opposite. So when you have two straight lines intersecting each other, those opposite angles will always be equal. And I'll show you that's true. So no matter how I wiggle around these angles, I'll always have two pairs of opposites. So 98 and 82, I've got those two pairs. So it doesn't matter how I move these lines. So these are called vertically opposite angles. So in a diagram like this, my two red angles and my two green angles will be equal because they are vertically opposite. What about this diagram? Do we have any vertically opposite angles? So I want you to pause the video and have a think. Tell me, are any of these angles equal? So why or why not? Okay, I'm going to tell you that these are not vertically opposite angles. We don't know if any of these angles are equal. There's not enough information to tell us. That is because they are not straight lines. Do we see the difference between this first diagram and the second diagram? This first diagram has been composed of two straight lines. So this is a straight line and this whole thing is a straight line. So these are not vertically opposite because it's just a bunch of random lines coming out from a point. So it only works when you have straight lines intersecting each other. Okay, so I'm going to give you a quick quiz on this. Alright, so the first one is which angle is vertically opposite to angle P? So here's my angle P. Which one's opposite? So which one's equal? So between each question, please can you pause the video to give yourself a chance to think. So first solution is C. So angle C and P are vertically opposite, so these two angles must be equal. Next question. What is the size of angle P? So here's angle P on my diagram. What is the size of it? Angle P is 42 degrees because angle P is vertically opposite to this 42 degrees, so they're equal. Next question. What is the size of angle P in this diagram? So angle P would be 132 degrees because it is vertically opposite to that angle there. Okay, next one. So what is the size of angle A and angle B? Okay, so this one's a little bit trickier, but what we're going to do, we need to spot that angle A is part of a half turn. So if I get my pen, let's see if I can get this to work. Do we see that this is one half turn? So what would angle A have to be? We know that a half turn, so angles on a straight line add up to make 180. So what does A have to be? Well, angle A has to be 80, because 70 and 30 is 100, so angle A is 80. So what would angle B have to be? Well, we've got two straight lines intersecting each other, we have opposite angles, so B is 80 degrees because they're vertically opposite, so C is my final answer. Okay, and then the last question we've got, so Raphael says, these two angles are equal because they are vertically opposite. Do you agree with him? Yes or no? Okay, so this is not true. It's not true because these lines, they're not straight. It's just a bunch of random lines coming out of a point. So it only works when there's two straight lines intersecting each other. So guys, for our classwork today, it's not all on vertically opposite angles. Sometimes vertically opposite angles might come into it, but basically our classwork today, it's a mixture of everything we looked at last lesson and also the vertically opposite information that we looked at this lesson. Right, so you've got two tasks, so find them on my post on Google Classroom, and I've given you all of your answers as well. Any problems, please just let me know by sending me an email or writing to me on Google Classroom. Okay, thank you very much, guys.